Hello and welcome to this next lesson in the Hello Saxophone Starters Guide. In this lesson I'm going to teach you to play the chromatic scale, which means playing all the notes on the saxophone from the very lowest to the very highest and back. So we'll start with the low B flat, the lowest note on the saxophone. You start by pressing down all the pearl keys, and I'll show you what to do with your pinkies. Press this key like this, and this key like this. Now it might be a little bit tricky to get this note out at first, but that just takes some practice. Just make sure that you use the O sound, so you're blowing like O, so your mouth is very open and big to play this note. Now we're going to go from the low B flat to the low B, so 1/2 step up. All you need to do to make this transition is take your pinky that's here and slide it up like this. Now remember, this low B is also one of the hardest notes to play on the saxophone. So this particular transition, this first one from the low B flat to the low B, is very hard because you're using both of your pinkies, and if you're just starting, it's a little bit difficult, so don't worry too much if that still gives you a bit of trouble. It just takes some practice to get it right. So let's move on to the next note. We're gonna move from this low B to the low C, like this. Now to make this transition, all you do is let go of this pinky, like this. Now we can move from this C to the C sharp. Note that through all this time, this pinky is still pressed. Now to go from the C to the C sharp, this time you're going to put your pinky down here, on this part of the platform, like this. So now we can go from this C sharp, which by the way is sometimes also called the D flat. It's the same note, but it can kind of have two different names, so don't be confused by that. For now, let's just call it the C sharp. So we're going to move from this C sharp to the next note up, which is the D, like this. Now to do that, you're going to simultaneously let go of this key and this key. Now from now on, the notes in general will get a little bit more easy to blow, and at this point you can start to use less of an O sound and more of an E sound. So oi, your mouth gets a little bit smaller that way, and that gives a bit more support for these notes that need a bit more power in that way. So use more of a kind of an E shape from now on. Now we're at the D, and we're now going to move from this D, which means that you now have just all the pearls pressed down, to the D sharp, also sometimes called the E flat. It's again one of those notes that it's the same note, but it can go by two names, and it sounds like this. So to go from the D to the D sharp, this time you press this pinky. Now let's go from this D sharp to the E. Now this can be a bit of a tricky one, because you have to lift up both your lowest fingers at the same time, really simultaneously, like that. Now the next transition is very easy. Just look at the chart here next to me, like this, from the E to the F. But then the next note, from the F to F sharp, is a little bit more tricky. It goes like this. And the tricky bit is that from the F to the F sharp, you have to switch these fingers. So you're going to do this. And you really have to time that right. So it really has to go very fluidly. Otherwise, that won't work so well. Sometimes the F sharp won't come out if you sort of botch that up. So you want to make a really clear switch between those two. From F to D, do, D. Now the F sharp itself sometimes can also be a bit harder to play for beginners. So if it's a bit harder for you to get that F sharp to really sound, that's okay. Usually after a week or 2, 3 of playing, it'll be much more easier to get that note out and it'll work just fine. But don't be surprised if it's a bit tough for you in the beginning. So now we're at the F sharp and we're going to move from the F sharp to the G. Very easy, just look at the chart. You just let go of your lowest finger. And then we go from the G to the G sharp, or also called the A flat, like this. And we go from the G to this G sharp or A flat by adding this pearl pinky here, like that. So now we can move from the G sharp to the A, like this. Now this brings us to a similar situation as what we had to do with the lower hand, because you're going to have to take both your lowest fingers, on your upper hand of course, off at the same time, like this. So both fingers come up at the same time to go from the G sharp to the A, like that. Very smoothly. So we're playing the A right now, and we're going to move up to the A sharp, or sometimes also called the B flat, like this. And we do that by adding this key, and you play that with your palm. So like this, with the kind of the inside of your hand, you press this key to the side. Yeah? It's the lowest one of the three, like this. Then we go from the A sharp or B flat to the B, like this. And that means you're going to simultaneously let go of this palm key again, like that. And at the same time, you're going to let go of the A key, like that. Now we're going to go from the B to the C. And that's actually very similar to playing from the F to the F sharp, like this. Now similar to when we were playing the F to the F sharp, you're going to have to make a switch here. So you're going to go from the B to the C, and you're going to have to learn to really effectively and cleanly switch between those two to make it sound right. So very quickly from B to C. So now we're going to go from the C to the C sharp, and that basically means that that last final pearl that you're still holding down with your middle finger here on your upper hand, you're going to let go of that, so that actually only your thumbs on the back are still supporting the saxophone, but you'll have none of the keys pressed. So like this. So now that we've reached the C sharp, we're ready to move up another octave on the saxophone. So we're going to now add the octave key, and we're going to play actually exactly what we've done so far from the D upwards, but this time with the addition of the octave key. So you can, after the C sharp, close all the pearls again, but with the addition of the octave key. And then you'll go from the C sharp to the D, one octave above it. So like this. Now at this point I'd like to mention that we already changed our mouth shape with the lower notes from O to E, and now it's a good idea to start changing it again from E to more of an I sound, so E, because that tightens your throat even more and focuses the pressure of your breath, and the notes that we're playing from now and upward really need a lot of very good, solid pressure to come out good. So that's just something to keep in your back of your mind. If you have trouble getting the notes from here up on out and having them sound really well, you might want to really think about sort of saying or singing E and thinking, you know, E with your throat when you're blowing through the saxophone. That will help support your notes from here on up. And so now we will literally repeat exactly the way we played before, from D up to C sharp again, but with the addition of the octave key. So you can just follow the chart here and play along with me. You know how to move your fingers now, like this. So now that we have reached the C sharp on the upper register, we can go into the really high notes on the saxophone. So we're now at the C sharp. That means that you have only the octave key pressed, but none of the pearl keys, like this. and now we're going to move from the C sharp to the high D, like this. So we have these three so-called palm keys on the upper side of your saxophone, and you're going to use this first one and you're going to press that with your palm. So this is where your thumb rest is. It's the first one from the thumb rest, and you're going to use the inside of your hand like this, I hope you can see it, to press that. So this is C sharp with the octave key pressed, and then you're going to go up to the D by pressing that. So now we can move up from the high D to the high D sharp or the high E flat. Again, it's a note that can have two different names, but we play it like this. Here we go. And we do that by adding this second pearl key. So you already pressed the first one with your palm, and now you're going to use the inside of your finger here, your index finger, to add the second one. So I'll try to show you from a different side. The first one here, and then the second one like that. Yes? So again from the other side, the first one here goes like this, and then the second one like that. And of course normally my hand is a bit curved like this, but just so you can see what I'm doing. And if I do it naturally, like it really happens inside your hand, so you can barely see that. But that's what you do. The first one, so here you're playing D, and then we go D sharp, like that. Yes? Then we move from the D sharp or E flat to the E, like this. So you're just going to keep the two palm keys on your upper hand pressed, and you're going to add the upper one of these three side keys. You remember when we were playing the B flat, you pressed this with the side of your palm. So now you're going to do the same thing, but with this higher one. So you have your saxophone like this, and you're going to press it like this, with the inside of your index finger upwards like this. Now we can go from the high E to the high F. So keep everything you had pressed down. Press, so the lower palm key and those two higher palm keys, and of course your octave key. And then we're going to add this third palm key here with your middle finger. I'll show you in detail later, but it sounds like this. So in detail, you have already this one pressed with the inside of your palm and with your upper finger. And now you're going to use the middle finger to press this last, so the third one, this one, down, like this. And of course you have this one sort of wrapped around those other two, but you're going to use this. And when your hand is naturally bent, it's very easy, but it takes a little getting used to. So that's the first two, and then this one with your third finger, with your middle finger, you're going to press that. So now we're ready to play the highest note on the saxophone, the high F sharp. Barring the altissimo register, of course, but that's subject for another video because it's much harder and really for beginners impossible to play. So you keep your fingers where you got them, you keep playing the same thing, but now on the lower end we add the high F sharp key, like this. Now, this saxophone that I'm playing actually doesn't have an F sharp key, because I can simply play the note altissimo and it makes my saxophone a little bit lighter and it makes the tone a little bit more big to not have that key on your saxophone. But you probably have a long shaped key in this space here. So you have these three buttons, then you have this pearl, or sometimes it's a longer shaped pearl here on the side, and in between here there will be another key, and that's your high F sharp key. So press that with your middle finger here to activate that high F sharp. So that's how you play all the notes on the saxophone from the bottom to the top. Now, when you want to play them back down, you make the exact same movement, just you just reverse your movement. So like this. And the most important thing when learning this is precision. You want to really do this very slowly and precisely, and then you can slowly start to increase your speed as you get better with this. But if you're very sloppy with this, and if you try to increase your speed kind of too fast, then those little mistakes will go into your playing, and that will make it much harder for you to really reach high speeds. When you want to play jazz, for example, or bebop, you'll have to play this chromatic stuff sometimes really quickly. And so learning this scale, it's not just learning this scale, but it's learning to play all over the saxophone, and it's learning to transit from one note to the next. So the most important thing with this, be very precise and practice it slowly, and then gradually increase your speed. As long as you can keep it precise, then you're doing it right. So have fun with this, and I'll see you in the next lesson here in the Hello Saxophone Starter's Guide.